Well, glory be and mercy me, we've done it yet again. Here we are, daily walk at the graveyard. The thesis of today's video is very straightforwardly, we are caught in a mass hysteria. That the oil craze, what we are doing with oil, has led us into a hysteria that we are yet to snap out of. That we had a moment as a people with the pandemic where we calmed down for just a brief moment. And in that brief moment, we caught a glimpse of a new form of life, a new way to live, a new lifestyle that could actually fall into balance with the rest of the world. We are being confronted with climate change and climate change consequences. And instead of reacting in a way that is reasonable, in a way that is rational, in a way that lets us see that we need to come into alignment and balance with the system that spawned us, we are doing everything we can in order to maintain it. And the only way that we can describe it now is as a mass hysteria. That our government is literally invading First Nations land in order to force people off of their own land, in order to arrest people and harass First Nations people at gunpoint, no less, so that we can put a pipeline through their territory to continue this hysteria-based project of exploiting oil. And why are we exploiting the oil? How do we know that this is a hysteria? Because the stakes can actually not be lower. Are we exploiting oil because it's absolutely crucial for us? Will we all be wiped out as a species? Will we be facing some kind of strange existential threat if we don't keep exploiting oil? Is there an alien species pointing space lasers at us if we don't continue extracting the oil? No. In fact, when we analyze and discover what it is we're actually doing with this oil exploitation, we find out very quickly that there are two reasons why we are exploiting oil. Reason the first is the classic neoliberal grift of money. That we need more money. That this is how we get money. We have erected a financial system, invented a currency, and we will exchange oil for money. A more meaningless exchange cannot be discussed. That this, all by itself, indicates the hysteria that we have caught ourselves in. That we are literally exchanging livable conditions, breathable air, workable land, drinkable water, for invisible money dollars that we have pulled out of thin air. This all by itself indicates a mass hysteria that we need to snap out of. The second reason we are exploiting oil is no less worse, which is that we want toys. We want new and extravagant toys. We want new and extravagant ways to operate. We want superpowers. We want to fly. We want to go to space. We want little handheld devices that let us do exactly as I'm doing now. And we want newer, brighter toys. We want LOL dolls and Barbie dolls. We want bottles made of plastic. We want to use oil in order to play a fantasy version of life. And we are willing to wind ourselves up into a hysteria in order to do it. And it is going to destroy us. Once again, we are exchanging breathable air, drinkable water, and workable land for toys. This is a arrangement that we should not tolerate. The people who are suggesting that we maintain it, we should consider to be either extraordinarily deluded or extraordinarily evil. And yet we find ourselves here. In the 14th century, the Dutch began to speculate on tulips. They found themselves caught up in the idea that tulips are beautiful and there are new ways of growing tulips and creating them, and isn't it lovely? And the speculative markets that arose around tulips became so great that farmers began growing tulips instead of grain. And it actually began to create famines within the country. And eventually, a politician stood up and said, "This is madness. We can't eat tulips." And it collapsed the entire tulip market. A bunch of speculators lost a bunch of money. No one cared, as they shouldn't have. And they started to grow grain, and everything was right in the world again. So too is it with our hysteria surrounding oil, that we have been caught up in the pursuit of the worship of money, and we have been caught up in the pursuit of superpowers and toys, and we are literally, quite literally, being confronted with the reality that you can't eat money. You can't drink toys. And now we get into the reality of the shamefulness of what it is we have done as a people. That we are not asking, I am not asking people to sacrifice their lives the way that people sacrificed their lives in World War II, when there was an existential threat of Nazism. I am not asking people to make so grand a sacrifice, or a sacrifice of their children, or a sacrifice of any of this. What we are asking people to sacrifice is their toys. This is how shamefully childish the conversation has become. That so little is being asked to be sacrificed for such an enormous gain. And yet our culture refuses to deal with it. And in fact, when put to the question of, shall we slow production down? Shall we actually move into a future without oil? Instead of actually doing it, our political class lies to us about it. Justin Trudeau stands in front of the world and lies about wanting to get to net zero by 2050. A year so far in the future that he'll essentially be dead by the time we reach it, while simultaneously turning around and increasing oil production by 25%. This traitorous betrayal of the Canadian people, if not humanity itself, is being done for money we invented, a fiat currency that is actually tied to nothing, that is unimportant, that we literally can print, create, destroy, manipulate, and alter as we see fit. And for toys, so that people can drive around in trucks as big as World War II tanks. Shoot themselves into space. Fly around the world instead of simply live in the community they live in. There does come a point where I do have to start asking, do you think our politicians actually care about their own children? Do you think that they have paused even to consider what it is they are doing to even their own children? And this is why I call it a mass hysteria. And with all mass hysterias, once the hysteria is lifted, we will look back and shake our heads and ask ourselves, why did we think it was wise to act in such a way? Why did we think it was wise to act this way? And once we actually stop exploiting oil and burning it so that the carbon increases the temperature of this planet exponentially, the changes that occur to our quality of life will not be so drastic. That part of the hysteria is the fear-mongering surrounding the transition away, the shift away from fossil fuels. That the proponents of the capitalist death cult who are caught within the hysteria wish us to believe that a world without oil will be worse somehow than a world that is literally on fire, the town of Lytton burnt down because of climate change, or a world in which the land itself will shift and destroy all of our infrastructure, like what has happened in British Columbia and all along the East Coast. This is a mass hysteria. We are literally trading breathable air, workable land, drinkable water for monopoly money and other assorted toys. I think it makes sense that a culture that is caught up in such a mass hysteria such as this, based on such enormously childish principles and ideas, to me it makes sense that we should sit in the corner for a while and think about what we've done. It makes sense that we simply cease our invasion of First Nations lands in order to continue this mass hysteria. The people who are still supporting the conservatives and the liberals are caught in a mass hysteria, and we need to begin treating them as such. That we know what is happening. It is obvious what is happening. We don't need to be exasperated about it. We don't need to be defensive about it. We need to continuously stand on the truth of what is actually occurring and say to these people, can you please snap out of it? You are caught in a hysteria. That everything is going to be fine. That humanity lived on this plane of existence without oil for far longer than it has lived with oil. That the earth itself created a garden for us to live in long before we were even here to enjoy it. And should we simply stop doing what it is we are doing, then the earth will heal itself. It wants to be a garden. And if we would like to be here to see it return to the garden it once was, then all we have to do is stop. Well, this is the end of today's video, guys. Please like, please share, please subscribe. I've got my Patreon down below, all of that kind of stuff. I've got a live stream, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please come on in. We are organizing a revolution. We have to literally begin creating systems outside of the capitalist death cult in order to replace these systems, as it has become obvious that in its mass hysteria, it refuses to respond rationally to facts, evidence, with compassion and empathy. Always remember, you are a quantum being standing around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to ensure you never realize it. Don't let them. Good luck. We're gonna need it.